Thank you, General Shankar, and thank you, General Murthy. Heard you with great interest. So when I heard this subject that you have chosen, I must deviate from it because I frankly don't see any order. I see a new Trump disorder. So an order has, steps to it. Disorder has no steps. So it is a as and when we can leave policy. Today I can do this, I will announce it. So if you try and see, first, what is evident is that the American century is perhaps clearly coming to an end. And isolationist America is reflective of that. If they don't want influence over the world except through brute force, then the American century is really coming to an end. But the Asian century is continuing, and that Trump cannot stop. So, therefore, the Indo Pacific and Asia are given. It is for America to choose whether they want their power to be diminished, curtailed, become isolationist, or remain internationalist. That's their choice. But I don't think that is going to alter the realities of the capital production and the economic strength of Asia. So I think that is very clear. Second, in the disorder that Trump is chasing, multilateralism is put to the sword. And among the victims of this are the United Nations. I think it was a spectacle that for the first time, I think, a P5 country supports a resolution, sponsors it, and then votes against it. So this kind of flip-flop can only be called disorderly conduct. It is not order. Secondly, the globalization on which the US has actually done well by it for themselves is also now sought to be curtailed. They don't believe in diversity, equality, and all that. They're actually saying gender is not our objective. They are saying that the SDGs are not our objective. And they said, their representative in the UN said that the issues of gender and SDG were defeated at the ballot in November 2024. So the internationally agreed norms on climate, on equality, or gender, on SDGs have all been put aside. Plus, America is withdrawing from the WHO, which means a future pandemic, the Americans are not in. If you look at all this, it is not everything which Trump is doing. Please remember the United Nations Law of the Sea, which the United States often quotes, they themselves are not a signatory to it till today.
Yes. UNCLOS, yes.
Yes, Kyoto Protocol was concerned, they stayed out of it.
Yeah.
And only they came in late, and now they're withdrawing from climate again. So WTO, they have fractured by not letting the dispute settlement mechanism function. So the Americans' commitment to multilateralism, except on their terms, has been consistent, and Trump is only saying it rudely. That is essential of the difference. Next, you move to neighbors. Normally, Trump would have good neighborly relations. It was Trump 1.0 which redid NAFTA with Canada and Mexico. And today he's junking that and threatening them with high tariff for reasons which are not entirely specified. Is it because of immigration? Is it because of any particular goods and services? And is fentanyl a good enough reason to impose huge tariffs on your neighbors who have otherwise got a free trade area with you? So I think he is not a repair handyman. He is a destruction engineer in this way. Now, after the neighbors, you go to your allies, right? And there, I think General Shankar and General Murthy mentioned NATO is now living on an edge of American resistance. So the allies like Europe, for instance, are largely being left on their own and told to fend for yourself. Now, before the Ukraine crisis broke out, Europe was telling America, mind your own business. We will deal with Ukraine through the Minsk process. And today the Americans are paying them back in kind and saying, you keep out, we'll deal with Russia and Ukraine on our own. And just as you kept us out then, you stay out now. So there is no question of allies. Whether the Europeans spend more on defense is now no more a US demand. It is their own necessity. So that is the third. What about your rivals and your enemies? They seem to be getting away. The Russians are having the easiest time right now with the Americans. The North Koreans were embraced by Trump in Trump 1.0. He's not said anything about them now. The Iranians are their bugbear, but he's offering them a nuclear deal now, which earlier he never wanted. And with China, both sides are remarkably silent on what is the next step. So America's systemic rivals and enemies are actually having a good time. They are not the subject of the new Trump order or disorder. Yes, it is possible that he will come to them turn by turn, but in the first flush, they are not impacted. There are no new sanctions on Iran or on China or on North Korea, nothing. He even talks to Hamas over Israel to get his hostages out. Well, with Pakistan is another case. I think Pakistan was cock-a-hoop because they released some para-terrorist and sold him as a great terrorist to the Americans, and Trump announced it in Congress and paid tribute to Pakistan as a great friend in the counter-terrorism. And a week later, now Pakistan is in their crosshairs for total visa restrictions and travel bans. So I don't think there is any consistency in this. And now I come to the Indo-Pacific. I put it to you that the Indo-Pacific, Japan and India know that with or without Australia, with or without the USA, we have a China to contend with. So whether the other two Quad partners stick by us or not, Japan and India are going to try their best to keep it a free and open Indo-Pacific. And in the last 1 month since Trump's election and Ishiba and Modi meetings in the White House, you see the intensity of Japanese delegations coming to India. You see the intensity of defense cooperation going up. And even if these are not new, the timing and bunching is very evident. So I think India and Japan are clear that we have to hold up the two ends of the Indo-Pacific. What do other countries feel? I made 2 visits to ASEAN recently, and I asked them, do you feel neglected? They said yes. But everybody neglects them. Even the Biden administration in the first 6 months neglected ASEAN. So they should get used to it. But I asked them, do you prefer being embraced or would you prefer being neglected? And they said being neglected is better because whoever is embraced by the Americans is perhaps going to get a shock. So it is better to stay away and see how best. Now, to conclude, I would say that if you want me to draw certain things out of Trump action, first, I already explained to you how he's dealing with the world, in my view. Second, he is inconsistent. Shock and awe is there, but there is no consistency of policy. He wants Greenland. He wants to take over the Panama Canal and then ask BlackRock to go ahead. You notice the Chinese didn't protest. They don't want to rile him. And the Danes are not talking too loudly about Greenland. So the second aspect is critical minerals seem to be a running theme in the Trump policies. Ukraine, critical minerals. Russia, critical minerals. Canada, critical minerals. Greenland, critical minerals. I can't see critical minerals in Gaza. But there is a
That's a nice one.
there is a huge problem in DRC. And I was in DRC recently, and they all blame the Americans for the Rwanda-backed rebellion. And they say this is again an effort to grab Eastern DRC's critical minerals. So that is the one consistent theme I'm seeing, critical minerals. And finally, I think the tarification, I'm not talking much about it because I think Mr. Pant will do so. Tarification for strategic purpose is clear. Also clear is an unwillingness to go to war. No boots on the ground, no wars to enter, deal with everybody through undiplomatic tarification if necessary, but achieve your aims and bash people down. So as we face shock and awe, let us see whether the shock remains and how awed we remain. Thank you.